Hello. Greetings to members of the Children's Literature Association, and especially to the committee members who bestowed the Phoenix Award to Many Stones. Any author's dream is to... Do we need to start over because of the cat?
No, I'm going to have cats on my camera too.
Okay. Any author's dream is to have her book published and read, reviewed, seriously considered. And that dream was realized for me with Many Stones. Now, to have it recognized again so long after the fact of its publication is something I never dreamed of. Before Many Stones was given this award, I didn't even know such a thing existed. That there are dedicated teachers and scholars of children's literature out there who go looking for books that have already had their day and to shine a light on them again. But here we are 20 years after the publication of Many Stones, and much to my surprise and delight, the committee members of the Phoenix Award have seen fit to honor it, deeming it worthy of revisiting. So my book feels doubly blessed, and I thank you. I cannot speak about Many Stones without also thanking, again and always, Stephen Roxburgh, brilliant editor of all my novels, my husband and love of my life. And without thanking my dear friend Stephen Holt, to whom the book is dedicated, who accompanied me to South Africa to do research and to attend a hearing of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and who helped plan and implement the itinerary that I closely replicated in the book. And to my beloved writers group of 35 years plus, Janet Shea and Susan Monsky. Novels are written in solitude, but many, many people are necessary to bring them into being. Beyond my thanks, what can I say about it now, after all these years? Well, Gabrielle asked me for something between a tweet and the Gettysburg Address, and so I'll do my best to strike that fine balance. Some 20 plus years ago, I wrote a daughter-father story about an angry, heartbroken young woman who is brought to a slightly broader understanding of herself and the world beyond her small self through a trip to South Africa. Rereading Many Stones for the first time in many years reminded me of what I was trying to reckon with in writing it. The long, staggered process of coming to terms with loss and the slow evolution towards forgiveness. The basic question at the heart of the story seems to me, how do I forgive something that feels unforgivable? This is a question that my narrator, Barry, is confronting for the first time in her young life, although she doesn't consciously know it's driving her. And it was a question that was much in my own heart, in my own life, during the years that I worked on the story. On a much bigger and public level, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was formed in South Africa to reckon with the gaping wounds of apartheid and to avoid civil war. The jumpstart for Many Stones came initially from a news story about Amy Beale, an American student and activist who was murdered in South Africa in a political uprising of mob violence. Her family traveled to South Africa and in honor of Amy and her commitment to peace, supported the Truth and Reconciliation process through which the 4 men convicted of her murder received amnesty. I was stunned when I heard that story, driving home from my dreaded day job one afternoon, moved to tears by every part of it, that such a committee even existed, sanctioned and supported by the government, and of course, that so great an act of forgiveness could be offered by parents in the wake of their child's murder. So an actual event planted the seed that Many Stones grew out of, even though the story I ended up writing completely veered away from the Beales and their experience. I asked for and received their generous blessing to write a story inspired by them, and then fiction worked its way, and Many Stones became its own story with its own characters and trajectory. But trying to better understand forgiveness was certainly at its heart. After I had the bare bones of an initiating incident and setting in mind, my narrator, Barry, emerged, voice first, utterly insistent that it was her story to tell. Many Stones was the first novel I'd written in first person and would remain so for the next 20 years. In my years of teaching writing, I saw what I considered an overabundance of first-person narration, especially in YA, often based on the mistaken assumption that it was easier and automatically conferred greater intimacy. But I could not escape Barry's voice, angry, cynical, endlessly argumentative, determined to skate fast across the ice that covered her grief and pain. Long before the details of plot and character became clear, there was her voice demanding its say. Adult readers' reaction to Barry is decidedly split. Those who feel compassion for her and like her and identify with her either in their younger selves or through their teenage children, and those who find her simply insufferable. Many Stones was translated into a good number of languages, but rejected by the Dutch, with a note that explained everyone at the publishing house who had read it found her to be the most unlikable narrator they had ever encountered. For the record, I was always on Barry's side, which may, in a quick and simple way, explain why I wrote for and about children for 30 years. Giving kids the benefit of the doubt comes naturally. I get that what young people think and feel and go through matters just as much as what the rest of us do. Barry was tough, though, relentless, snarky, and I could barely contain the brush fires that constantly erupted between her and her father on the page. They tired me out, those two, but their dynamic also showed me the way the story had to unfold, because letting go of the anger that covers pain is a slog, a one step forward, two steps back kind of progression. But behind and around and underneath their struggles loomed the inspiration and model of an entire nation and its new leader, Nelson Mandela, struggling to move beyond their pain and grief, showing a possible way forward from a history of monumental injustice, loss, and violence. One of the challenges of writing Many Stones was to balance the personal and the political. In draft after draft, I had to repeatedly draw the focus back to the very personal daughter-father journey that lay at the center of it. But I came of age during a time when the slogan, "The personal is political," took root. It was a moment of epiphany for me, linking the two in a way I'd never considered before. That realization is part of Barry's story too. I was acutely aware as I wrote Many Stones that my character was white, privileged, ignorant in many ways, as am I. Letting it be truly Barry's story meant accepting her starting point and the limits of her perspective, and then trying to broaden and deepen that perspective. One of the underlying premises of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was the demand for acknowledgement. People had to say what they had done. Remorse, apology, they were not required. I may have thought I was writing a book about or toward forgiveness, but what the TRC made clear, what it helped both Barry and me to see, is that acknowledgement is the key that turns the lock. Lets further opening happen. Barry comes to see how much she craves it, the raw facts of her sister's death, the rupture of her family after her parents' divorce, her father's abdication. I think we all tend to know first and best what has hurt us, and not necessarily how we have hurt others. We resist that part, but it's our refusal to acknowledge our own culpability that often ends up feeding systems that perpetuate pervasive degradation of others. When I read Many Stones now, it reminds me that I share the same hope for myself that I did for Barry and for whoever may read her story. That we reckon with the circumstances of our lives, whatever they may be, our particular griefs and grievances, with a growing understanding that we are all connected and all responsible for how we treat one another. What would it mean for each of us to acknowledge at a personal, community, national, global level what we do that causes harm to others? and to contribute what we can to stop it, each doing the work that is ours to do. It's not the exact question I was asking 20 years ago when I wrote Many Stones, but I like to think the story inevitably leads to it. And it's certainly the question I'm asking now. Thank you again for giving me the chance to go back and reconsider. And thank you for honoring Many Stones and for finding its small expression of this larger work worthy of revisiting. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, I'm just going to give it a moment here to pause for editing purposes. And then that was lovely, Carolyn, and I can't think of a better time for that speech than after this particularly brutal week and everything that has, you know, the centuries that have led up to it. I also realized, somewhat to my horror, that I probably should have introduced you at the beginning of the video, as I would have, you know, had we been in person. I'm also thinking, though, that nobody wants to see me in this video, right? Like, they can see me all the time. So what I'm imagining will happen is that there will be I will write up an intro as I would have, you know, said at the podium before you came up, and that will be there. So it won't just be you cold.
Right. But you also could introduce it and put it in. I mean,
I could, yes. But I
would love to see.
It's one of the learning curves, I think, of doing this way.
Whatever works.
And what's your, I'm sorry, Stephen, what?
The new Zoom reality.
Yes, yes. And what is your cat's name?
Oh, Pop.
Pop.
What? Bob?
Pop. Yes.
Pop, okay. Well, I have Spoonbread up here. You may have seen him moving back and forth, and Charlie is in the closet. I don't know that he'll come out. So yeah, I mean, right now a Zoom call without a cat is not a Zoom call I want to be on.
Right.
All right, so Stephen, we'll turn to you, and I'm going to say we'll do the same thing for your introductory material. It will be up there on the slide in case we need anything additional to go with your remarks. Okay, so whenever you are ready.
Well, thank you for giving me the chance to say a few words on the occasion of Carolyn's winning the Phoenix. My involvement with the Children's Literature Association and the Phoenix Award goes back 45 years, which precedes both the Children's Literature Organization and the Phoenix Award. In 1965, I read The Mark of the Horse Lord by Rosemary Sutcliffe. I was 15, the book changed my life. I don't need to explain to you folks what that means. That's what we do. In 1975, I was starting my doctoral work at SUNY Stony Brook, now Stony Brook University, in children's literature, and I joined the CHLA, which was very early days for CHLA, became involved with the Children's Literature Quarterly, and was quite active in the organization for a number of years. Life intervened. I ended up going into publishing, and in 1985, I was publishing Rosemary Sutcliffe. That was the year that the Phoenix Award was inaugurated, and we were notified that Mark of the Horse Lord had won the first Phoenix Award. Now, Sutcliffe, you all know, was lifelong debilitated by juvenile onset arthritis. She couldn't travel. She was of an age at that time, so she asked me if I would deliver her speech. So I went to the conference. I think it was Philadelphia, but I'm not sure. And I had the great honor of reading her remarks about The Mark of the Horse Lord, a book which had changed my life. A book which I subsequently published when it was out of print, and then I republished it when it was out of print again. And only about 3 years ago did I finally have to stop republishing The Mark of the Horse Lord. That's 1985. I was the published editor-in-chief at Farrar, Straus and Giroux. 2 years earlier, I published a book called The Long Night Watch by Ivan Southall, which won the Phoenix Award in 2003. A few years after 1985, I published Rosemary Sutcliffe's last book, The Shining Company, which won the Phoenix Award in 2010. skip forward a few more years, and in the year 2000, I published Carolyn Coman's Many Stones, which you've just awarded the Phoenix Award. So for me, the Phoenix Award is a recurring motif in my personal and professional life. And what started as a deeply intimate personal relationship with that book, The Mark of the Horse Lord, has come full circle now with a deeply intimate personal relationship with Carolyn Coman and her novel Many Stones. So on a both personal and professional level, I want to thank you folks for still being there, still doing what you're doing, recognizing books that may or may not have received sufficient attention 20 years ago, but books go on forever. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're most welcome. And I knew part of that story, but I didn't know all of that story, and the ways in which the Phoenix keeps coming back into your life is just fascinating, and in which you keep coming back into Phoenix's and the CHLA's life.
I published a lot of books in the last 20 years, so I'm just waiting for the next call. No?
It seems like a good plan based on what's happened in the past.
Yes, indeed. Well,
yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you both. I will, I have this cloud recording. If you'd like, I can send you all the link to it so that you can see it as well. I will send this to CHLA, and let's see, if you're interested in seeing the finished product, sort of how we put the slides up and whatnot, I can also, I'm pretty sure, find a way to get you access to that. Just FYI, the runner up this year for the Phoenix, although it sounds strange to talk about him in this way. So Many Stones was the winner this year, and then 145th Street by Walter Dean Myers is the Phoenix honor book. And Christopher Myers, who won last year for Black Cat, won again this year, I think, for Wings. So again, we were super excited that we thought we were going to have that triangulation of Chris, you know, there for his dad and there for his, you know, but as you said, Stephen, life intervenes, right? So is there anything at this point that you would like to ask, or any details that have come to you that I haven't covered about any of this?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Carolyn, I know that there is a plaque that is in the process of being engraved. So that I was just asked to check the spelling. And so that will be coming to you at some point. Otherwise, I very much appreciate both of you giving your talks. And I know that the Phoenix Committee is very grateful. And I know that the CHLA membership will really enjoy watching and listening to the speeches. And I hope, well, here's Charlie. I hope that it will encourage more of our membership who might not have read Many Stones yet, or might not have read it in a while, to give it a read. And stay tuned. I'm very excited about the book's next year's winners too. So you should be able to see those in the same slideshow. So where are you all? You mentioned you were at the farm, but where is the farm? Oh, Carolyn, you muted yourself.
New Hampshire. We're in,
oh, you're in New Hampshire. Okay. What part?
Southeast corner of New Hampshire, right on the Mass border.
My dad lives in Amherst, and I grew up there part of the time. So he's down in Western Massachusetts. Right. So not too far away. And then we're outside of Philly. So yeah, got an East Coast representation happening.
There we go.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you both again. Take good care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.